Hi Aidan, thanks for taking time to talk to us. What's the story of Blitz?
It takes place over, 2 weeks in a hot summer when this guy is going ballistic on the streets and they're trying to track him down, but he's doing it just in broad daylight. It's quite a brash. I really liked this character. I like playing this character. He's ridiculously self-confident, skinny, scrawny, and just getting up to all kinds of craziness in broad daylight.
It's interesting there you say that he really appealed to you, because that was going to be my next question of what was it about him which attracted you to him. So it is kind of this out there-ness about him which
yeah, just the wildness and recklessness of it, I don't think it's cool going around killing people, but it's a cartoon like Tom and Jerry.
He's quite a psychotic character, so how did you go about getting inside his head? Did you have any kind of people you took as influences, maybe from other films or even from kind of history or anything like that?
It all seemed to be there on the page, or a lot of it, and of course we've all seen millions of killers like that on in films, because I don't know, people tend to like watching violent films. Not everybody, but there wasn't anyone in particular that it was based on, really. And not just killers, but musicians and street urchins and people I would have seen on the street. I suppose it's just a bit of a mixture of everything, but I just thought it was, I read it on the page and thought if I got the right top and got my teeth done.
I noticed you had quite a wild hairstyle in it.
Hair, I'd be ready to go.
I think the hair was a big part of it. When I saw the trailer, I was kind of drawn in by how kind of crazy his hair was. You can tell a lot about a character from what their hair's like.
Their hair and their shoes, yeah.
I've never noticed the shoes, but I'll keep an eye out for that.
For people with white shoes.
It's based on a novel by Ken Bruin. Had you read the novel before you went into the film, or did you go back having been in it and kind of read it to see how your character differed from the one in the book or anything?
Yeah,
like that?
I had to look after, but I didn't read it, the whole thing. I've read some of his other stuff. He's actually a friend of mine. I went down to before we started shooting, I went down to Camberwell, which is where Ken's books are set, like Camberwell and Peckham, to stay in my friend's council flat, just to get in the mood. And one of the first things I found was an autographed book by Ken Bruin on the mantelpiece, and he was a mate of his. And he'd used my mate's some lyrics from one of his songs, kind of in one of his books. I can't even remember what I was talking about. What was the question? I was kind of
whether you'd
I'm so happy with that nugget of information that I forgot what I was talking about.
Whether you'd read the book beforehand or whether you went back to it afterwards, basically.
No, I didn't. Well, look, it was all on the page, and I thought it's probably quite different. And then when I did start reading it, and the character has been described as something that was quite physically different from me, I just didn't really want to get into it, because I'd started thinking, I knew that the way that I would fit into playing this character, it wasn't going to be about like brute strength. It was going to be about just speed and fearlessness and just sheer just this kind of reckless flair that this guy seemed to have.
The fact you mentioned the physicality is interesting, because starring opposite as the good guy in it is you're opposite Jason Statham, who is very much a kind of a specimen of physicality. How did you, because there's a lot of action scenes in the film as well, did you find it a little bit daunting trying to keep up with him? Did you feel like you had to match him kind of physically, or did you just kind of shy away from that if you could?
No, he was usually running after me anyway.
You had the speed advantage.
I'd actually played a couple of parts like this before, where I'd gone up against like Jackie Chan in one film, and John Cena, who's a massive WWE wrestler, in another film. I thought with this Barry character, his method of dealing with shit like this, can I say that?
You can say that. It's fine.
Is to run, just run really fast, and he'd have like a lot of experience of like running away, of like handbag snatches and those kind of like nasty crimes like that, shoplifting, just smashing and smash and grab. He's a runner. So even when Brandt does confront him, or the times they meet, I don't want to give too much away, but the first time he can't really do anything because he's in there's another cop there and they're just calling around on a I don't think he even has a warrant. The next time when he finally does catch up with me, I managed to slip away. I just had a knack for getting out of his grasp, before he could actually pummel me, which is what he wanted to do, and which of course he totally could do. But I think if you're kind of reckless and if you don't care if you die or live, it gives you quite a lot of power, and that's what this character was running on. Just adrenaline, sugar, fearlessness, that kind of thing.
That's the scariest type of bad guy, isn't it? Is the one who's not afraid of dying.
You don't care, any skinny, scrawny guy. And I did, I specifically wanted to look as skinny and scrawny as I could, which is why I wasn't wearing a shirt for a lot of it.
It's nice to have the difference between the two characters. I think they're two different types of kind of scariness. That's a nice kind of balance between the two. It's
he's quite introspective in this one, and quite
withdrawn,
almost suppressed and withdrawn, and and I'm really full of beans.
Yeah, obviously a lot of people will know you from your television work with things like Queer as Folk and The Wire and Game of Thrones. Do you think at the moment that television is so strong that maybe a lot of people are going from films to TV? Do you think you see yourself mainly as a film actor now, or you're still in Game of Thrones, so you just
I've always split it equally between film, theatre and TV since I started acting, which is nearly 20 years ago, or is 20 years ago. It's been pretty much, if I wrote it down on pieces of paper, it would be like evenly divided between film, TV, theatre. I think where there used to be some kind of snobbery between people going from film and TV, or people who were known as TV actors didn't find it so easy to go into film. It's the other way around now almost, but that's down to probably HBO raising the bar so high in America, and the production values of TV just going like way up, and a lot of writers just going there, and it's really good to when you're working on something it's going to be seen.
My final question is kind of related to the TV again. How much of an influence has The Wire had on your career, and also finally, is there any chance of it coming back?
I don't think The Wire will come back. David Simon originally conceived of it as a 5-season arc, and they got 5 seasons. Every time they had to fight to do the next one. I think season 5 was the easier one for them to get greenlit by the powers that be, because season 4 was probably the most widely seen one. And then people went back and watched the other ones. It was also critically probably it came to more people's attention, probably because it had these four teenage kids in it that everyone cared so much about, and everyone really wanted to see what happened. It just drew in a lot of new viewers. It won't come back because it was never, it wasn't a case of it's finished or it's been ended prematurely. That's all it was ever going to be. And they moved on. They've since done Generation Kill, Treme, so it's all people like David Simon and Ed Burns and the people behind The Wire. That's done. I had a great time doing it. I'm not sure. It probably did have an influence on my career. I'm sure it did. I don't really kind of think of it in those terms. Usually when I finish something like that, I'll go off and try and do something completely different. I was just glad to have been there and to have been part of it, because I thought it was an excellent television series.
I want a lawyer and a sandwich. Oh, and I want to update my Facebook status.
So that was Aidan Gillen speaking to me a few weeks ago about Blitz, which is out in cinemas now, and it also stars the brilliant Paddy Considine.